So I hate starting with but I wanted to let you know what 3,000 realtors do when they come to Sacramento. And why do we go to Sacramento? What we call it is Ledge Day, which stands for Legislation Day. And basically what happens is we come down here, we're here for a whole week. And first of all, here's what it looks like, our packet. And bright and early in the morning, what we do is we have our orientation. We're told which issues we're going to talk about, how we talk about it, how we discuss things with our legislators, and make sure that they understand that we're here to help homeowners. And we're big and we're strong, not big and strong, but we are a group of, sometimes it's about 2,500, sometimes it's about 3,000 of us. But what we do is we come up here and it's awesome. So I'm going to show you, we have the packet and we open it up, and what happens is we have information. And this information right here is the history of Costa-Hawkins. And it's interesting because California is mostly renters. It's just about, I want to say 50-50. We don't know the exact numbers, but there's a lot of tenants in the state of California. But there's also, obviously homeowners in California. Now what Costa-Hawkins did is, you have to think about this. A lot of people, and it was said best by Phil Hawkins, who is the son of the Costa-Hawkins Act. And Costa-Hawkins Act is over 30 years old, I believe. Let's see, it was celebrating 30 years. I mean, it's really bad. I'm just really, really tired. So what happened was we came up here, and not only were we celebrating Costa-Hawkins, but the other thing we were doing is making sure that some of the hot issues that our legislators know about, we asked them to either vote for it or against it. And one of the ones that the word is opposed, we were opposed was AB, which stands for Assembly Bill. So if you ever want to get into understanding how the legislation works out here, the first one is AB 1157. AB stands for Assembly Bill. So Assembly Bill, by the person who is the author, is usually right after it, and it's CALRA. And what this was expansion on extreme rent control. What's that mean, extreme rent control? Now think about this. People who are property owners who probably, now you have to look at it, we're trying to protect the mom and pops. A lot of mom and pop landlords have no idea about all these rules and regulations that are put on them, because years and years and years ago, like 30, 40 years ago, I know I bought my first property and I still have it in 1987. And, as a homeowner at the time, not understanding anything about rules and regulations, you think that you buy a property and you can rent it out to whoever you want for however much you want for a decent amount of rent. Now, what people don't understand about rent control that you really have to understand, because a lot of tenants vote against landlords, they vote for rent control. And what rent control really does, it hurts you. Because without rent control, as a landlord, if I'm allowed to rent my property out to somebody for $900 a month, which I did, I had a single mom in my property for 10 years. I never once raised the rent because she was a great tenant. She was making the payments. Whenever there was a problem, we'd talk about what was wrong, and she'd help me find the best deal to get it fixed. Now, without Costa-Hawkins, it would have been impossible for me to keep it at $900 a month. Because what happens is with rent control, when they tell us what we have to do and what we can and cannot do with our own properties, what it does is, how would you like it if the state told you you could not drive your car down the street and make a U-turn? Or what if they told you, I mean, that's not a very good example, but you buy a property and you think you can do whatever you want, but you really can't. So with rent control, what I would have to do is I would have to raise the rent every year, because when she moves out, I cannot bring the rent up. And in order to make sure that I'm able to get the right amount of rent for the longest amount of time and be able to make the payments if I have to have something fixed, rent control makes it so I actually have to raise the rent all the time. So with that said, this one, it was extreme rent control, AB, Assembly Bill 1157. What we did was, they knew we were coming. We talked to all of our legislators, because with 2,500 of us, we're each from different areas, and we talked to as many legislators as we can. By the time we got done, they backed it down. They pulled it. So 1157 is gone. That's awesome. So the next thing that we were going to fight against was actually we were asking for a yes vote from our assembly people was SB, that stands for Senate Bill 448. Now Senate Bill 448 was by Umberg, and this is a squatter's law. So what happens with a homeowner who owns a rental property and maybe, guess what happens? Hello, how you doing? Guess what happens? Maybe the property is vacant for a little while and squatters go into the property and start living in your property. And it's really hard to get squatters to leave. So this Senate bill, it's a Senate bill, we were asking our legislators to vote for it so that we're more able to have law enforcement people help us get squatters out of the property so that we can get in there and clean it and get it ready for our next renters so that we can get tenants in there and have somebody have a roof over their head. So what happens is we make appointments with all our legislators, and with 2,500 of us from all over California, we're going to go to the legislator who represent our area. And that's what we did today. And it was a successful day. So I wanted to bring that in and let you understand that, because a lot of people don't understand rent control, and they don't understand that it raises the rent and it's not good for areas. It says squatters' rights is a thing. Yeah, squatters' rights is actually a thing. Now, it depends on the county. So let's talk about that for a second. It depends on the county or the location of your property. Now, I had a property in Moreno Valley, and Riverside County Sheriff's Departments were all on board, because what happens is, if literally it wasn't my personal property, I had the listing out there, and what happened was, while there was no tenants in there, these people moved in. They literally went knocking on the neighbors' doors and said, "Hi, we're the new tenants. We're going to be moving in." And they moved in with a U-Haul truck and everything. And I had the listing. So I was going over there to go ahead and get ready to list the property. And I get there and the door's locked. And it's not the key that my homeowner gave me to get in. And I said, "Did you change the key or anything?" And he goes, "No, I didn't." And I said, "Well, I peeked in the window. It looks like someone's living there." He goes, "No, the tenants moved out a long time ago." And I said, "Well, I think somebody moved into your property." So I went next door. You have to be kind of bold as a real estate agent. I went next door and I knocked on the door and I said, "Hi, my name's Sharon Butler. I'm the new listing agent. We're going to go ahead and get this property fixed up and sell it." And they said, "Thank God." They go, "But didn't you just put new renters in?" And I said, "No, we did not put new renters in." And the next door neighbor, he told me, he goes, "Well, this woman, we saw her move in with her moving truck. After she moved in with the moving truck, I kid you not, she knocked on everybody's door." Remember, I said that. He said, "And she told us that she was supposed to be there." And I go, "That's really random. I mean, most tenants don't do that." And I go, "That's awfully friendly of her, but she doesn't have a lease." He's like, "Are you kidding me?" And I said, "No." So I didn't want to break into the house with her stuff in there. And there really wasn't that much stuff in there. So what we did was we called the police. And the police said, "Well, do they have a lease?" And so in Moreno Valley, the police are really good. The sheriff's department are really good. And yeah, I know, really. And what they said was, what they'll do is they'll come out there when she's there. So what we did was we had to camp out. We had to ambush them. So we camped out down the street. We saw her come home. We called the sheriff's department. And what she did was she told the sheriff she had a lease. And he said, "Well, if you can show me the lease, then you don't have to leave. But if you don't have a lease," so she acted like she was looking for it. She's like, "Well, officer, I can't find it right now, but I swear I have a lease. And, if you give me a couple days, I can give it to you." He's like, "Well, if you don't have a lease right now, we were told you don't have one and you're squatting, so you need to leave and start packing now." So the sheriffs actually stayed there until she moved everything out. And of course, she couldn't move everything out without a U-Haul. So he said, "What we have to do is, get your stuff out, get as much as you can out. And we're going to stay here until you leave. And once you leave, if you want to get in and get your stuff later, you're going to have to contact the owner of the property." And so the sheriff's department did help us. But in some areas, law enforcement will not get involved in a landlord-tenant situation, because if the squatters say that they have a contract, then what are you going to do? And if they make up a fake contract, what are you going to do? So she was prepared to make up a fake contract, I believe, because you have no idea, what people will do to try to get a roof over their head, but you got to do it the right way. And so when people sit there and say, landlords are mean or landlords, don't understand, landlords are people too. And they're not rich landlords. Some landlords are people who bought their first property like me, and it was an inexpensive property, but it went up in value. So I was able to take an equity line out. And that's called pyramiding, when you take an equity line out of your rental property and you buy the next property that you're going to live in. And that's what I did. I took an equity line out of my little small condo. Literally, it's 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, under 600 square feet. Took the money out and I bought my next property, which was in another city. And it was a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, and it was a nice family home. And I kept that property. I wish I would have kept that property forever, but I kept that property for a few years, sold that one, and bought my next one. Now, that made me a landlord with that first property because I kept that condo. So I'm not a rich landlord. I was just able to buy my first property and keep it and buy the next one. And I thought, you know what? If I keep that property forever, when I go to retire, if there's no Social Security, because we never know if Social Security will be there. And I thought that when I was 18 years old, pretty good, huh? And I thought, well, if there's no Social Security, I can keep that property and that will be income for me. And that's what a lot of people did is, a lot of homeowners were able to keep that, and they're just small landlords. So what's that say? I don't know what that says. It won't what? I don't know what you said. I don't know. Anyway, so if you have something you want to talk to me about, I can totally teach you how to build wealth with real estate. I don't charge you anything extra than a normal real estate agent fee, which is super cool because a lot of people take classes on how to be investors when you really don't have to take a class on how to be an investor. You have to find a good realtor, okay? It says Social Security won't be there. Well, you never know, right? And so I did keep buying houses. I ended up buying properties out of state because I thought that might be a good idea. But I really want, my rule when I'm a landlord is everything needs to be at least 45 minutes. So if something bad happens and you have to be at your property to take care of a problem, 45 minutes isn't bad. But when it's out of state, you have to drive really far, or you have to get on a plane, or you have to make arrangements. That's going to be a little bit hard. And it doesn't take that many properties. 1 or 2 properties plus the one you live in for you to rent out and be able to collect money. And it says, what state is your license in? Miss Butler, thank you. My broker's license is in the state of California. I am starting to work on my Texas license, and I do have a friend of mine that wants to get his Arizona license. So we're going to study that one together, and the Texas one I'm working on right now. So we'll see how that goes. And if you're out of the state, but you still have questions, I'll still take your questions. All you have to do is put them in my chat or reach out to me, because a loan is a loan is a loan. Most of the loans that people get when they're buying first-time homes are full documentation. That means we need to see your W-2s and your pay stubs and how much money you have in the bank. But there's a lot of down payment assistance programs. And like I said, a loan is a loan. So most loans are backed by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac or FHA, or if you're a veteran, VA. And I can answer your questions for you and probably direct you to someone, because when I go to Washington, D.C. in 3 weeks, I'm going to meet a bunch of realtors from all different states. And last time I met several people from several different states, and that way I can refer you to them, and they would know if somebody in the area that you're in. That's what you do when you network with other realtors. So we do a lot of networking. If you're working with a realtor who's involved with CAR, and we have hot issues and we know what's going on, and if we know something, I don't think the average person knows that legislators, each and every one of them, can do, I believe it's up to 1,300 new laws. That's a lot of new laws. And if they're making all these new rules and regulations, and you're a landlord and you don't know about a new rule and regulations, guess what? You're going to get yourself in trouble. In fact, in April, a law passed, and a lot of people say, oh, I take pictures. Okay, that's great that you take pictures. But what you should do is, there's a sheet that's called a move in and move out sheet. And what realtors do when they're helping you as a property manager, what they do is they use the move in and move out sheet. They take the tenant through the property and they fill out everything about the property on the move in. And then when they move out, they fill out that. And most of us take photos. So you have photos before the tenants move in and photos when they move out. Now there's a new part to that. So there's another step. And the new step with the new law is you take pictures before they move in. You take pictures when they move out. And you take pictures after you fix any repairs. So let's say that they move out and they damage, so I still have my label on me. Let's say they move out and they damage the sink or they damage the kitchen. They have really dirty carpet and they made a mess of your walls and you have to paint, clean the carpet or replace the carpet and fix the kitchen sink. Well, what you have to do is you have to take pictures right after they moved out, and then you have to add a third set of pictures. The third set of pictures by law is a set of pictures of after what you did to fix it. So you got 3 sets of pictures if you're a landlord, whether you have a realtor or not who's helping you with property management. If you don't, you have to learn these rules and regulations. So my highest suggestion to you is if you're an investor or you're somebody who owns rental property, reach out to a realtor who's involved, okay? It says, what about smokers damage? Oh, smokers damage is horrible. Make sure you put that no smoking. If you have smokers damage, you're gonna have to have a cleaning crew come in and you take a picture, because let me tell you, I bought a property, thank you for asking that. I bought a property from a young man who was taking care of his dad. Well, he wasn't that young. He was taking care of his dad, and it was in a 55 plus community. Okay. And little did I know, because I didn't see it, I was helping him try to save the property. And when we couldn't save the property, I told him, I said, look, I'll buy it and rent it back to you. And then when he stopped making the rent payments, because for some reason he thought I was rich enough to just go ahead and make the payments for him. What renters don't understand is just because we own property doesn't mean we have money to pay for your rent. I mean, you should be responsible. The number one thing that you should be responsible for is the roof over your head, because those people who are helping you have a roof over their head, a lot of times, if we're, most mom and pop landlords don't like to raise the rent. But the problem is with all these new rules and they're trying to challenge Costa-Hawkins, which has been around for like 30 years, since 1995. And what Costa-Hawkins did was it protected mom and pop landlords. So it did not have to do with like apartment buildings, but it protected people that were small mom and pop landlords who owned 1 or 2 properties, and they have to make the payments on them. So if the renter doesn't make the payments, they could lose the property. That's not cool. So I don't know why legislators, especially, I probably shouldn't say this, but from what I understand, there's a couple of legislators in the San Francisco area that really dislike, I don't know why they hate landlords so much, because, without landlords, you guys have to think about this. If you keep voting against landlords and we decide to sell our homes to the big investors who are the mean guys and who know how to get you out of properties, that we may not sell to those. We may sell our properties to investors out of country. And there's a lot of investors out of country that buy the property and let it sit there with no tenants in it. Because the foreign investors who invest, they don't know how we have they don't know our landlord tenant laws, so they just buy the property and let it sit there vacant. And I will tell you, I'm not BSing you on that one, because when I walk my dog, and by the way, there's 8 of you online. I have only 4 likes. So 8 of you, I need you to go ahead and give me some likes. Come on now, some thumbs up. And also, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe, because I give you lots of great information. So anyways, when you have mom and pop landlords who are protected by Costa-Hawkins, we don't raise the rent all the time, but it's scary because, so this is how it used to be. What we used to be able to do is thank you very much. What we used to do is, like I said, I had a lady who lived in my property from the time she moved in until the time she moved out was 10 years. When she moved in, her son was 8. Obviously, when they moved out, he was 18, and I never raised the rent, $900 a month the whole time. When she moved out, the rent should have been about $1,500 a month. Now, because of that, when she moved out, I could rent it out for $1,500 a month. Now, remember, I just jumped from $900 to $1,500 because that was the current going rent. But if some of these, like if this one, if AB 1157 passed, if I rented to that lady for 10 years and I went and got a new tenant, then I'd have to give the new tenant the $900 a month. And I wouldn't be able to afford it. So what I'd have to do is sell my property, or I'd have to, I don't know, move in myself. So they're making it very difficult for landlords, which makes it very difficult for people who want to rent properties. So what I was going to say about believe it or not, when I walk Wilford in the morning, that's who I walk, he's a dude. I walk Wilford, there's at least 5 homes that I see that I have watched since I moved in, and they were bought by foreign investors, back when I bought my home in the late 1980s, early 90s, and they have been vacant ever since. Now, the investors leave them vacant because, like I said, they don't understand the California landlord-tenant laws, and because of that, they don't want to have a problem. So they just hold on to it and let the equity go up. And when they want to cash out, they sell it and they take the money. And back when I bought my home, homes in the area were about $350,000 to $400,000, and now those same homes are worth about $1.3 to $1.4 million. So those guys are going to be cashing out pretty soon. And for sale signs are actually starting to go up in the area that I live in, which I think is really, really cool, making it more available for more homeowners. So any kind of information that you want, I know it's crazy. Lots of stuff goes on, and behind the scenes, a lot of people don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So what I was going to say to you is, if you want to learn how to buy property, work with a real estate agent who owns property. Doesn't that make sense? When I talk to real estate agents that don't own property, I'm like, I don't get it. But if you want to be an investor, talk to realtors that are investors. I remember I went to Texas once, and I had one rental property there, and I went there and I started going to real estate offices. I went to 5 real estate offices in Texas, and I said to the front desk, I said, I'm an investor, I'm a buyer, and I want a realtor who is an investor here in Texas. So do you have any realtors here that own a property and they have investment properties? And I gave my name and number to 5 real estate offices that were pretty large. Most likely they had at least 20 to 50 realtors. Do you know that I got 0 phone calls? Because I wanted to work with somebody who knew the rules and regulations of Texas, but nobody called me. So that was that. But if you want to flip houses, I would talk to realtors who have flipped homes. So in the beginning, I was just an investor. Then I owned a mortgage company, so I can tell you what you qualify for. Then after that, let's say I still own the mortgage company for a long, long time. I still do loans. And then after that, I started flipping homes with my son. And so I flipped them, I invest in them. I love real estate. I'm addicted to real estate. So if anyone's in California, I can help you. Once I get my Texas and my Arizona license, I'll let you guys know that also. But just to buy real estate and have something that you know that you can live in forever, or you can rent out, and you don't have to worry about your landlord letting you know that, oh, by the way, we're thinking about remodeling the house and selling it, so you have to move out. I don't know. That would be such a bummer to have somebody give you a notice that said, you have 60 days. So if you've lived there longer than a year, I believe they have to give you 60 days. They keep changing the rules all the time. It's pretty crazy because to me, if we have rules, legislative rules that we have to follow, and that's what I do from the day one. Now, all these people who own private property, the rules change on them and we have to follow the new rules. It's not really fair to them because they had planned on using those for investment properties so that they can use that as retirement. And you can do that too. So if you have any real estate questions, let me know. I'm going to go back to doing the principles course starting tomorrow, but I'm still here in Sacramento. If anybody's in Sacramento and they want to see our meetings tomorrow, meetings are all day tomorrow. The first one in the morning is called risk management. After risk management, there's several other meetings that you'd be interested in. Reach out to me and I'll let you know everything that's going on. If you have real estate questions, put them in my comments. I'm here to help you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for thumbs up, and have a great evening. Good night. I'm trying to shut it off in a way that doesn't put my hand in the front, but it doesn't work.